Hello and welcome to this edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Hannah Perlmutter, in for Michelle Marino.
At Arlington Public News, we bring you stories of interest to Arlington and surrounding communities. In tonight's newscast, we present highlights of a panel discussion on Race Matters. We learn about the newly certified United Independent Party, and we meet Arlington's new library director.
Plus, an important update about the photo of the month. That and more up next. Please stay with us.
Recent attacks in Paris resulted in the deaths of 12 people at the offices of the satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo and 5 more at a kosher supermarket in eastern Paris. These killings and the ensuing manhunts conducted by French police have brought back memories of the Boston Marathon bombings. Hundreds gathered on Boston Common in solidarity with the French people on Sunday, January 11th. Arlington's Chief of Police Fred Ryan noted the events of that week will go down in infamy for Massachusetts law enforcement, and let's hope that no other city or state ever has to go through what the residents of Boston went through on Marathon Monday and the days that followed.
On Thursday, January 8th, Arlington Public News held a special panel discussion with distinguished local guests as part of the national focus on relations between police and communities of color. This event, Race Matters, explored the lessons Arlington can draw from the collective reaction to grand jury decisions in Missouri and New York. A live in-studio audience had the opportunity to pose questions directly to the panelists. Race Matters is the first installment of a new series called Global to Local that will probe compelling public affairs issues and how they affect our community.
Ferguson, Staten Island. Much of the nation's attention is currently focused on how police departments interact with their communities, and particularly with residents of color.
I'm James Milan. Welcome to Race Matters, the first in a series of public affairs discussions that we're calling Global to Local. We have a distinguished panel to discuss these issues. Chief Ryan, some people have voiced concerns along the lines of, could this happen here, and how can we feel confident that it won't?
Could it happen? Absolutely. It could happen anywhere. And in fact, as a young police officer in the early 1980s, mid-1980s, I was trained by the United States Department of Justice how to profile. I mean, it was a policy of the United States Department of Justice. So for us to ever take the position that racial profiling doesn't happen is absurd. So now we have a generation of police officers we have to untrain and hopefully enlighten and get smarter about having them understand their biases and having them in a safe place where they can talk about their experiences and their background and what biases they may have, and not fear being labeled a racist or some bad person, and then so that they understand the blink response and that they don't bring their biases to work when they decide to engage in an enforcement action or an arrest or any other police action.
Professor Joseph, I'm wondering whether and how much we might consider the incidents we're talking about as tragic examples of a criminal justice system that continues to be affected at all levels by unconscious or unacknowledged ideas and assumptions about race.
The number of African Americans who are in jail now dwarfs that who were in jail in 1964, 65. So when we think about racial progress. And the interesting part is that the laws that allowed this to happen, the language of them are race neutral, right? These anti-crime acts of the 1980s, and also the DOJ, its criminal justice grants. Its criminal justice grants at the state and local level, and the Brennan Center at NYU has offered alternatives with success-oriented funding. What it does, it incentivizes states and local municipalities to arrest in mass certain populations, right? It incentivizes how many arrests do you have, how many big cases. It's not about rehabilitation, and it's certainly not about ending recidivism, meaning the turnstile of people going in and out of prison.
We're going to move to questions from the audience.
Now, this is for the panel. What part does fear come into this?
I think fear is on all sides. I think there is fear on the part of, it's the whole spectrum of not only people of color, but also the white majority, because there are people who feel that, oh my goodness, this is like, what is going on? Are we going to be in a bloodbath or a civil war? How is this going to go? Okay, so there's that kind of extreme fear. And then there is the fear of the people who are really, well-meaning, liberal, social justice inclined whites. Well, we didn't do anything. We are for this cause, but, we are sort of getting, where do we stand? Because we feel the same way as you. We have the right values. We mightn't have gone through the same experience, but where do we stand? So there's that kind of fear, the fear of being in between. It's a question of, where are we going with this? What is going to happen when society changes? Where will my children grow up? Will we really be able to come to that society which is marked by compassion and understanding rather than becoming a reverse racism?
Thanks for joining us. For Arlington Public News and Arlington Community Media, this is James Milan. Thanks a lot.
The Arlington Libraries have a new director. APN met with newly appointed Peter Struzero and discussed his experience working with community libraries. We welcome Struzero to the community and wish him the best of luck in his new role.
Hello and welcome. I'm James Milan, and I want to say on behalf of the Arlington community, hello and welcome to our new library director, Peter Struzero. So Peter, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I understand that you have just made the move from Winthrop, Mass, where you were the library director and the museum director there.
Yes.
But that you do already have ties to Arlington?
My mother grew up in Arlington, so I spent my life coming to Arlington. My grandparents moved here from Connecticut after they were married at a young age and lived their whole lives here and raised their family here. So all of my memories of childhood, the happiest ones, were coming to Arlington for Christmas, for the Patriots Day Parade, to go sledding at Robbins Farm. It's very much a come full circle moment for me, I think. I built a lot of memories there as a child, and then that child grew up to become a librarian. So probably a lot of it had to do with those experiences, and dedicated my life to library work. And now here I am back where it all started.
And I'm sure that Winthrop presented, especially as your position was a combination of library director and museum director, presented any number of challenges for you.
I don't think it'll be the same kind of work at all to start, I suppose. When I came to Winthrop, I had a very dedicated staff, a very small staff in a fairly small beach community, and a very old and not up to snuff library. There was a lot of opportunity there, a lot of room to update the policies, to update the procedures, and to bring that library forward, which is what I did when I was there, and I had a great success. I had a lot of statistics. Everything that you could measure in Winthrop went up in the time that I was there based on these updates and these tweaks in process and the bringing forward of that library. Where this library is very much up to snuff and very much a well-oiled machine. It has had a long history of great library directors. And I don't feel like this is a place that needs to be updated, that needs to have walls kicked down and things changed. This is already a big success and a very much a benchmark for libraries in the greater Boston area, and one that pushes the bar and that sets the trends. So it's a whole different game for me now.
Can you give us some idea of what your own visions for either directions you'd like to see us move in, or just programs or projects you have in mind, anything like that?
I'm going to continue to empower the staff because I think they know. They set the trends, and my role is really going to be to give them the tools that they need and the support that they need. I think that the library constantly is changing, and it's something that has happened over the years, over the decades. Every time a big thing happens, they say, oh no, the library is, what's going to happen to the library? All the libraries were going to go out of business when TV became popular. And then when the internet became popular, and oh no, it's ebooks, the end of libraries is here. But clearly libraries, especially places like the Robbins and the Fox Library, have stood the test of time and shown that libraries aren't going anywhere. They're just changing and evolving.
I have spent, as many of you have perhaps, countless hours in the Robbins Library. It's one of our great treasures. It's wonderful to think that it remains in extremely strong hands. This is James Milan for Arlington Public News and Arlington Community Media. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You know, Arlington is just so lucky to have such an amazing resource that is the Robbins Library.
Absolutely. And you know, one of my favorite rooms in that library, I love that building, is the reading room. I spend a lot of time there, and it's one of the nicest public spaces in Arlington, I think.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked it out, you should.
The results of the 2014 election led to the creation of a new political party in Massachusetts called the United Independent Party. APN spoke with UIP founder Evan Falchuk about the mission and goals of the party.
Hello and welcome. I'm James Milan, and it is my pleasure to welcome back to our studio Evan Falchuk, who was the United Independent Party candidate for governor in this recent election. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So things, lots of things happened since the last time that you were in here, the most important of which, of course, is that the election itself occurred. You had mentioned at the time that you were talking to me last that a 3% margin, or 3% of the voters was at least what you were aiming for, at least. Can you remind us why that is and what the effects are?
Absolutely. So I ran as the candidate of a new party that is now an official party here in Massachusetts called the United Independent Party. We're just regular voters who felt as if the system was not representing people anymore and that we needed to build a framework in order to elect new candidates who would. And so to do that, you've got to get 3% of the vote in a statewide election, which we did on November 4th. I think in anything, if you work hard and you listen to what people have to say and you respect them and you show up, it makes a big difference, number one. Most campaigns aren't run that way anymore. They're run via TV ad and some media appearances, but not that much. Not a lot of going out there and actually meeting with people and talking with them. I think what voters want and what they're hungry for is candidates that will just be real. They'll just level with voters and treat them like adults, which they are. And it's missing. So every time you hear a vague soundbite, you're turned off. Every time you see a negative TV ad, or even the positive ad that doesn't tell you anything about the candidate, you say, why should I bother voting? They're all the same. But it's like any other entrepreneurial thing. Nothing exists until someone goes and creates it. So those of us that have been working on building the United Independent Party, and that work is continuing all the time and will continue into the future, are based on those principles and those values. What I hope is that we can be a model that other people can look at and say that's the way to do it.
So Republicans, Democrats, obviously, they don't have any incentive for the system to change. If it's going to happen at all, it's got to come from...
It's got to come from the outside, and it can't come from people saying, well, I'm just going to be on my own trying to take this on. We need to build and organize and mobilize for this kind of positive change. And it can happen, and it can be done.
To wrap up, let me just ask you to speculate on a budding Evan Falchuk out there somewhere. What would you say to him or her? What advice do you give them for taking on this same kind of challenge?
Be persistent. Do not give up. Stay true to your beliefs. Don't look for people that will tell you that there are shortcuts that don't exist. And if you're one of those people, send an email to contact@unitedindependent.org because we want to talk to you. We need the help and support of ambitious, persistent people who just want to do what's right in creating this party. That's what we're about. And we really look forward to earning the support of so many people across the state over the next period of time.
Well, once again, it was a great pleasure having you here. It's nice to feel like we're having some straight talk around political issues, and we appreciate that. We do want to thank Evan Falchuk very much for coming back in. I suspect we are going to be hearing more from him and his party in the future, and we look forward to it. For Arlington Public News, this is James Milan, and we thank you for joining us.
Have you ever seen the planet Neptune? Our APN science correspondent Gareth Williams shares information about the Neptune Mars conjunction and tells us what to look for in the night sky to get a glimpse of Neptune.
Most people on Earth have never seen Neptune. Yes, they've seen the spectacular images of the outermost planet that were returned during the Voyager 2 flyby in 1989, but they've never seen it with their own eyes. Discovered in 1846, Neptune is too faint to be seen with the unaided eye. Binoculars are sufficient to see the planet if one knows where to look for it. Fortunately, in the next few days there is the possibility to locate Neptune using a much brighter planet, Mars, as a stepping stone. Around 6:30 p.m. on Monday, January the 19th, Mars will be visible about 12 degrees up from the horizon in the southwestern sky. At the same time, Neptune will be located about 1/6 of a degree to the northwest of Mars. A moderately bright star, Sigma Aquarii, lies roughly half a degree to the south of Mars, which will help you judge angular distances in your field of view. Under good sky conditions, the blue coloration of Neptune should be visible in binoculars, while a small telescope will reveal the planet's small blue disk. If you have a camera with a manual mode, so that you can take a time exposure, this would be a good opportunity to experiment with simple astrophotography. There is nothing scientifically important about this conjunction. It is simply a good opportunity for you to see an astronomical object that you've probably never seen before. For Arlington Public News, I'm Dr. Gareth Williams.
And now on to some other beautiful things in nature. Recently, I spoke with Arlington native and wildlife photographer Nathan Goshgarian about his experience capturing beautiful landscapes and exotic birds through his camera lens. Hi and welcome. Today I am here with Nathan Goshgarian, who is a longtime Arlington resident and also a very accomplished wildlife photographer. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So I know I first heard about you in the Arlington Advocate, where you were, it was talked that you won an award for your photography. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. I submitted a photo that I took at Horn Pond in Woburn out of all the things I've ever shot, a baby duck. And I submitted it to the National Wildlife Federation, which is the largest conservation organization, nonprofit in the country. And it was a total pool of about 30,000 pictures with a few different categories in there. And the baby ducklings came in first. And I thought it was spam when I first got the email, so I almost deleted it. But it turned out to be true.
That's pretty cool. So what made you get into wildlife photography?
I decided in my later 20s to go back to school and connect with my roots, which is biology. And so I decided to get a master's in conservation biology, and it was a master's that was split between Australia and New Zealand. So I was pretty much sold when I saw it, and I wanted to document my experience.
So you were studying conservation biology. What does that mean exactly?
That is studying the conservation of species which are either threatened or endangered or have the potential to be. So in Australia and New Zealand, you have a lot of species that grew up with a very particular environment, and any type of human encroachment or introduction of certain species can really dramatically affect their populations. So it's small island biology, especially in New Zealand, not with Australia.
So what are some of your favorite places to, take pictures around here?
Around here, Horn Pond is a great place. You've got kingfishers, you've got osprey, different types of hawks, bald eagles, believe it or not. The Mystic Lakes, you can see 4 or 5 different bald eagles at a time. Big fan of going to Plum Island, North Shore, and Duxbury, South Shore. And right now we've got this prolific eruption with the snowy owls, which we did last year as well. So they're starting to show up in pretty decent numbers. So I spend a lot of my time in those areas.
What's your favorite animal to shoot?
I've got to say owls, without a doubt, owls. There's something about them. They're so specialized, so enigmatic. They're not easy to find. And their existence revolves around this nocturnal lifestyle. So they've got the enigmatic kind of charisma that I think draws a lot of people to them.
Great. And so where can people find out more information about your work, or maybe if they want to purchase some of your work?
Sure. I've got a website, nathangoshgarian.com, and I sell prints on there. I do lessons, calendars, and stuff like that. So mainly that website, but I'm on Etsy. Most of my pictures go on my Flickr site, and that's updated weekly.
We'd like to thank Nathan very much for coming in and speaking with us. It was a pleasure to have you in.
It's been great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I'm Hannah Perlmutter with Arlington Public News. Thank you for watching.
Nathan talked about snowy owls, which I think are the coolest looking animals. I've never actually seen one. Have you?
I haven't, but he also mentioned that this time of year in this area has a surplus of snowy owls for whatever reason, so maybe we'll see one around.
Maybe I'll see one. This week, we shine our sports spotlight on Arlington High School basketball.
Tonight from the Spy Ponders home, the Kozlowski Gymnasium here on the campus of Arlington High School, Spy Ponders with a 66-37 victory to improve their record overall to 7-0 over the Rockets of Reading High School. Matt Rury here with me tonight. The star of the show for Arlington in the first half, when Arlington built up a big lead, was Miles Robinson.
Yeah, Miles had a great dunk on a fast break off a steal. He had a couple of nice spin moves, and he was strong on the rebounding as always. And he definitely sparked the Spy Ponders, and that's what you need to do night in, night out as the best player on a team like this.
Arlington led at the half 35-14 and then coasted to the victory 66-37. For Arlington Public News Sports, I'm Don Phelan along with Matt Rury.
Listen up, avid readers. As the new year begins, the APN Book Club looks back at some of the best books of 2014 by asking local readers to share their own favorite choices. Here are some great book reviews and recommendations from the community.
As 2014 draws to a close, we at APN Book Club were wondering, what have people been reading and enjoying this year? So what better place to find out than coming to our treasured Robbins Library? You can see selected bestsellers from this year. We are wondering whether you have read any of them.
I read The Book Thief and Paper Towns.
Yes, I read The Goldfinch and I read Unbroken. I did not like The Goldfinch very much. I thought it was too convoluted. I liked Unbroken a lot.
So I've actually not read any of them, but I do have The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt on my Kindle that it's in my queue to read.
Yes, I read The Goldfinch and I read The Book Thief. I read The Book Thief when it came out actually many years ago, and I totally fell in love with it. But it's just an amazing and powerful book. The Goldfinch, to be honest, kind of thought it lost momentum.
I read Paper Towns by John Green. I read it because my niece really loved Paper Towns, and I wanted to read a book that we could talk about together.
What was your favorite book or books of 2014?
I read Whitey, the story of Whitey Bulger, written by Kevin Cullen. And Whitey Bulger was this area for the longest time.
Probably Carrie. It came out a while ago, Stephen King.
I love the books by Lee Childs. He has 21 of them. He's a mystery, action, suspense. The other series of books that I've been reading this year are Michael Connelly's books.
Tears of Silence by Jean Vanier. It's a photographic and a chosen narrative of pictures of people all over the world who are different in some way.
My favorite book was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. My guilty pleasure is fantasy and wizards and all that, so it's about a young wizard who is learning magic and learns the name of the wind.
Autobiography by Rafael Nadal, the tennis player. Rafa. Well, he's a very interesting character, and I love tennis. He's one of the biggest stars in tennis. His autobiography is pretty interesting, how he grew up and learned to play tennis and learned to be a champion.
Olive Kittredge by, I think it's Elizabeth Strout. I think a person of my age, especially a woman, would fall in love with that book. Almost an oddball woman who's, as the book goes on and it's told from her perspective, you come to realize she has this huge, huge heart.
The Arithmetist. It's kind of like a steampunk book about a world where students from a school battle with chalk drawings and circles.
I read a book called Temeraire by Naomi Novik, and it's about dragons and stuff in the Napoleonic Wars.
We spoke to a number of people, and interestingly, not many of them had read the books from our bestseller list. Also, the favorite books of these people were as individual as the people themselves. And we got many suggestions about books to explore in 2015. And so from the APN Book Club, have a happy holidays.
Arlington Public News hosts a regular Photo of the Month contest to celebrate moments in the lives of those who make up our community. This month's theme is Holiday Cheer, and the deadline has been extended to January 28th. Submit your pictures on our Facebook page or email them to news@acmi.tv for a chance to win a $100 gift card to Whole Foods Market in Arlington. As always, we look forward to seeing your photos, and we thank Whole Foods for their sponsorship.
Now it's time for the arts and entertainment calendar.
Good People finishes its run at Arlington Friends of the Drama the weekend of January 16th through 18th. Don't miss this funny but poignant drama set in Southie. 13 Forest Gallery will hold an opening reception for Likely Stories, Creative Images from Memories and Imagination by Borina Kancheva on January 16th. The exhibit runs through February 20th. Find out what inventive ways people use to fight winter elements throughout history as Friends of Robbins Library presents Oh Baby, It's Cold Outside on January 21st. Come take a virtual walking tour through the streets of Arlington as seen in 100 Years of Postcards from Arlington Historical Society member Bill Mahoney's collection on January 25th. Arlington Center for the Arts will host a gallery reception with live African drumming and song on January 30th for Beat Accent Recurrence, paintings by Audrey Diallo inspired by her travels through West Africa. The exhibit runs through February 13th.
I must say, in the dog days of winter, it's really nice to have all these cool events to go to.
It really is. There's a lot going on here. And I, being a history buff, I'm really looking forward to seeing the old Arlington postcard display. Arlington Public News is a production of Arlington Community Media and functions as a gateway for local participation in issues and events of interest to the community.
Check out our latest segments on the web at news.acmi.tv and like us on Facebook. Join us next time for another edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Hannah Perlmutter.
And I'm Paul Werlin. See you next time.